Hi, my name is Rick Howell. I'm a TV guy, and this show is called Talk Back to Television. It's about the business of television, how we make the programs, how we distribute the programs, and mostly how we pay for the programs. Because if we can't pay for the shows, there's nothing to watch. Stay tuned. One. Hi, this is Talk Back to Television, and I'm here with Jesse Redness, who's CEO and co-founder of a service called Qonsent with a Q. Jesse, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Rick? Good to see you again.
I'm doing fine. Tell us what Qonsent is and what Qonsent does.
Sure. So Qonsent is a user experience product, and we work with a lot of agencies and brands and platforms on helping to build better user experiences that enable more transparent trust and experiences they can offer their consumers when asking for consumers' first-party data. So we help them when they're asking for things like their name and their email or cell phone number, so that consumers understand how their data is going to be used, who it's going to be shared with, and be able to update or change their preferences as necessary so they can build a better relationship with these brands.
Okay. So I had somebody on, I think I had Ben Tata on a fireside the other week, and we got to talking about retail in places like Walmart, okay? And Walmart would love to be able to tell Procter & Gamble that I'm currently standing in front of an end cap display looking at cleaning products, okay?
Yeah.
But for Walmart to be able to do that, they have to get me to opt in a pretty significant manner to track me around the store, which they probably do with a combination of Wi-Fi and YouTube at those devices. But Walmart could give me a $5 discount on today's purchases, and everybody and their brother would take that. So that's the value exchange for my privacy information. Do you dig into that?
We do. We help both consumers as well as brands and platforms understand, what are those value exchanges that are meaningful to the consumer. So not just saying, great, come into my store, well, I'm going to give you $5 off if you let me track you within the store, but really explaining to the consumer in very simple, plain terms, by enabling this, here's what we're going to do. We're going to actually use beacons within the store, as well as your GPS location. It'll only be used when you're in the store, and that's the permission you're giving to us. So really helping brands lay these core components and information out in a plain language way, so every consumer can understand it immediately at the point of data collection, versus what the history has done is provided a lot of that language in a privacy policy that most people never really read. So that is part of the service that we are providing. And retail media networks are a big area in which brands and these platforms are looking to provide granular information, credit card transaction information, your location within the store. Did you actually buy the product within the store? And most consumers have no idea how that works.
Did you pause at that display and not buy the product? And they might come back to you with information after you get home and said, want to creep you out? We saw that you were looking at that. But in point of fact, they could do that, couldn't they?
They could do that. And I think it's really important for brands today to really explain to consumers the benefit, right, of being able to do that. The average consumer really needs to understand what benefit is there to me by enabling that? Because in some instances, it can get very creepy when you have brands digging in far too deep, providing information of you hovered in front of my display for 17.2 seconds. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. Really?
I was talking on the phone. I wasn't really looking at the, okay. So
exactly.
But you're also going to provide some guidance to the retailers and the advertisers, suggesting that when they do that, they remember to turn it off after I leave the store. or some variation of that, right?
Some variation of that, right? So the brands that are practicing best in class approaches to this, if they are saying to the consumer, we will only track you when you are in our store. If they are in fact then turning off GPS location tracking once the consumer leaves a store, or not pinging them once they leave the store, then that should be the expectation, right, that the consumer has, right? Yeah. So brands doing what they say, right, following through with the information that they gave to the consumer when the consumer said yes. And these are paramount for building foundations of trust with the consumer, because if you break that trust just once, you'll probably lose that consumer forever. And so again, it's far easier and more valuable to you as a brand to tell the truth, be transparent, make it easy, and then follow through with what you do and say, versus let's skirt the issue, work in gray areas, and then get caught later. Like that's going to break that trust with the consumer.
All right. So we got one more question. We were going to get into a lot, but you're just going to have to come back. Is there a process by which a brand or an advertiser can get the consent seal of approval that they're following your guidelines, so the consumer can look at that and say, I can trust these guys? Is that part of the process?
So there is no kind of, I guess you could say, like, industry-wide, consumer-wide seal of approval yet. I think there are initiatives that the industry has. The DAA has what's known as ad choices. It is consumer-facing. However, most consumers don't know what it actually is.
Right.
I do believe that a lot of consumers trust certain brands with, things like privacy. So I would say Apple, and when you're authenticating in with your Apple identity or paying with Apple,
they know everything about me.
They do know everything, but they've done a very good job of consumer market perception of privacy, and we're privacy safe. So most consumers would see that authenticate with Apple and say, oh, it's Apple. I have my entire life on my iPhone, and Apple is privacy safe. Therefore, let me authenticate in with Apple. So right now, I think there's a big opportunity for that to be built, right, with both consumers and then across the industry, in order to help support best practices.
Got it. All right. Well, listen, Apple can talk about creepy. You said an interesting thing. They've been successful building the perception that they're correctly managing my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Dear God in heavens. Okay, listen.
We'll save that one for another chat.
Yeah, we will save that for another time. There's one more thing I need to do, and that is my friends at USA Today have asked me to add a little tidbit to the end of every show. And so my tidbit is actually very interesting. If you want to watch a broad variety of television programs without sharing your life or doing anything to do it, you can go to a service called Stirr, STIRR, and stirr.com, whether on your smartphone or with the app or on your computer. You just type stirr.com and you're watching programs. You don't have to log in. You don't have to create an account. And they'll even identify, not always accurately, but they'll identify what local market you're in to serve up broadcast stations in that market that you can watch. So that's the tidbit for today. Jesse Redness from Qonsent. Thank you, bud, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Rick, good seeing you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, we are done, and we'll see everybody next week on Talk Back to Television. Bye-bye.